Hey guys, Craig from Bass Lessons Melbourne. Another episode of the player profile videos, and today we've got Neil Corcoran in to chat with us, so thanks for coming down, Neil.
Hi Craig, good to see you again.
You too, man. Could you start off by telling us a little bit about how you started on bass?
Well, probably going back to the early 80s, I was actually noodling around a bit with the classical guitar I had in the house. And a couple of schoolmates said let's form a band, and one was actually a fairly good drummer. The other one was a pretty good guitar player. He was the best out of the three of us as a muso. So it was like natural thing, play the bass.
You're going to play the bass?
So I actually, believe it or not, in my misspent youth, decided to try and put a set of bass strings onto an acoustic guitar with obvious results being that, it didn't work, put it that way.
Genius.
Yeah, so it was a bit like smashing the guitar up without smashing it, if you see what I mean. So, but yeah, what happened is I soon realised that I was going to be playing bass. So I think I bought it was 70 quid, I think. It was called an Angelica, semi-acoustic, like a Gibson type of semi-acoustic bass, like an EB sort of EBO type thing, It had like nylon coated strings. It's quite a unique thing, but
you probably like that now.
Oh yeah, well, I kind of wish I still had it.
Yeah.
But it had a very definite sort of sound, but we decided that we would actually be a punk band, so
right.
It didn't quite have the right tone. So I ended up soon after that buying an Aria. I think it was an Aria, one of those Aria Pro 2s, Japanese.
Oh yeah.
With like a cream coloured pickup in it.
Oh yeah.
Yeah,
like the Mario thing.
Yeah. And that had a much more
like a P bass?
Yeah, much more gritty, sort of aggressive rock sound.
Yeah.
So that was, but so that's how I started.
So punk band in high school and stuff?
Yeah, just kind of well, I was listening to different things, but they were listening to sort of early Generation X, Billy Idol and Adam Ant's first album, they're actually pretty good albums,
okay.
Pretty awesome.
Yeah.
I was listening to Stranglers and stuff, which obviously the bass is very P-bass driven, sort of.
Yeah. So you're playing with a pick?
No, fingers.
Right.
Yeah, just fingers. So, yeah, that was probably how I started playing bass guitar. But my influences were completely different in many regards.
Yeah.
So.
Right. So then from high school you finished, and then what was your kind of late teens, early 20s? What was that musically?
Well, my biggest influence really on me musically was my dad, because he had such good taste in music.
Right.
So from a young age I was sort of immersed into jazz and fusion, which is obviously for a bass player great.
Yeah.
So I remember as a kid he had a Jensen Interceptor in the early 70s with one of the old 8-track cassette players in it, the big cartridge things, and I
don't remember those, but I know what you're talking about.
Yeah, well it just like a big, almost like a videotape, used to go into this stereo in the car.
Yeah.
It was a big V8 monster Jensen. But he used to play Isley Brothers, Steely Dan.
Okay.
Just good stuff.
Good stuff.
Zeppelin. It's like it just lots of Santana.
And that all just kind of.
Yeah. So this is probably when I was 5 and 6, 7, and then by the time I started playing, when I got to my sort of 15, 16 years of age, in my mid-teen sort of thing, he'd already been playing Stanley Clarke School Days in the house. That was on, and it's sort of weird. Only after buying a bass did I realise that's actually what I was listening to.
Was he a musician?
No.
So just a regular member of the public buying an instrumental bass album?
Yeah.
Let's hope for us,
Yeah, exactly. School Days, Heavy Weather Report.
Right.
That was on in the house.
Right,
yeah. Then he would get into Jeff Lorber, Neil Larson, all the good keyboard players. A bit later on, obviously early 80s, he was listening to David Sanborn,
Luther
Vandross, and then
you had the Marcus thing.
So Marcus was always on in the house, so that was another factor. And again, it's like I recognised, that sound. I was like, okay, that's bass. Someone slapping a bass guitar.
Yeah.
we lived on the Isle of Wight at the time. The big local band down there was Level 42. That's when they just started out as well.
Are they from the Isle of Wight?
Yep. I went to the same high school as Mark King.
Okay.
But I was a few years down from there. I think it was in the same year as his brother. But anyway, so they were the big local act. So he was out buying Level 42's first album.
Okay.
And I was listening to Heathrow and all those tracks and Chinese Way, and I was like, okay, this is, So, yeah, so look, as much as I used to get into the punk stuff, that was more Ian Jury and the Stranglers and that kind of thing. Yeah. But really my heart was into the funk and the soul and because then down the track, used to listen to Paddy Austin with obviously different great musicians on those albums. Larry Graham came along as well later on, and Lewis Johnson, was also on Patti LaBelle albums and stuff. Paddy Austin rather. So so just lots of good bass players on in the house, and it was kind of a, by accident really.
Yeah.
I was listening to this stuff, and then I started playing bass, and it was like.
It was cool, yeah. Yeah,
it was great, and then I had I managed to videotape a Miles Davis concert that was at the Hammersmith Odeon in 1982, I think, with Marcus on bass.
Yeah.
I sit and watch that, just watch and try and pick out what he was doing.
Okay.
Pick out the solo and all those things he was, getting into those sort of blues lines, and then just running off into the chromatic stuff. And I was thinking, this is just, Then same with Level 42, Mark King. I'd watch him and just, pick out all the fun stuff and just get into that.
So you were just learning by ear? You didn't
learning by ear, totally.
You didn't have a bass teacher? Or?
No, didn't have any lessons. I just picked it up and just went with it. And kind of like whatever felt good for me. To be honest, look, the slapping thing actually came to me quite easily. Don't know why, it just did. It was something I latched onto pretty quick.
Well, I guess if you've been listening to Stanley Clarke and Marcus and Mark King.
Yeah, but I'd sit down and just, just start like that and just start picking out the patterns and try and figure out what they were doing. Just I suppose watching lots of and back then, because we didn't have the internet, obviously you'd have to just record whatever concerts you could. You'd have to keep an eye out for stuff that happened late night on TV.
Paper.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, what's going on? Yeah, ITV, 2:00 in the morning. But it's like so I'd record Miles Davis concert. I had a Level 42. I had a few other. I had Gil Scott Heron. Okay. And Robbie Gordon on his Alembic playing, and I was like, wow, that's cool, and got into him. Actually, I was lucky enough to meet him years later.
Right.
So all of those things were my, really, that's how I started, and just kept going.
Yeah. So when did the Mother Earth thing happen?
Mother Earth thing happened. Look, I mean, through my, that's my mid-teens, early 20s. I was in a band with some mates. We were trying to do original stuff. It was quite sort of Duran Duran, sort of poppy.
Yep.
It was a bit
Did
of.
Did you have some hair?
Yep, I had the hair. Highlights, spiky hair.
Nice.
Bootlace tie, silver suit, kind of real.
Okay.
Yeah.
Aria still in your?
No,
Aria?
what was I using? Actually, a Yamaha then.
Right.
One of the BB models. I had two. I had a fretless one. I've had lots of basses.
Very 80s of you.
Yeah, very 80s. Also, I used to have Westone, Westone Thunder 1 basses and Thunder 2s. I had those for a while. But I think I had a Yamaha, and we were trying to, I think we were called, what were we called? Vital Signs, I think. Like there's actually a diffusion band called Vital Signs. But we were trying to do like a Duran Duran poppy sort of song, sort of very electronic sounding drums, typical 80s, and I was trying to incorporate some of that sort of slap bass in there like I'd heard. Which it sort of worked at the time. So that was through to the late 80s, and then I kind of had a spell where I didn't do much musically for a while, just normal life and stuff, happened, and then purely by chance, I used to have some mates come around and we used to jam in the front room, set up the drums, guitar amp, playing, just jam ideas. And one of those guys was Matt Dayton, and he got into the studio project, which wasn't really a band at the time. It was just people, like a collective of people coming in and writing and sampling their favourite records.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, so that was the start of Mother Earth. They needed a bass player. He rang me, I came in, started playing. And that was it. It just went from there, and that lasted through, that was from the early 90 or 91, I think it was, then through to about 96.
Yeah. And so for anyone that doesn't know what was
Mother Earth was we were part of the whole acid jazz movement in London.
So Jamiroquai.
Yes, Jamiroquai,
Incognito,
Brand New Heavies, Corcoran, Emperor's New Clothes, Sandals. There was a few. The Sandals. Yeah.
Sandals and Corduroy in the one gig. That would have been pretty lucky.
Corduroy's still gigging actually. They're still going. Yeah, they're doing good. So it was part of that whole Jamiroquai supported Mother Earth at our first gig.
Cool.
And he was on his own, just with a DAT machine, I think.
Yeah.
On a DAT.
Because it was that kind of time in the music where sampling was really just coming out, and Jamiroquai was kind of a studio project as well.
It was, yeah.
So it was kind of that mixture of the kind of old school soul thing, but with beats.
Exactly. Yeah. So his first couple of singles, maybe it might have been one or two singles, can't remember. No, definitely one single was on acid jazz, and I think he had Andrew Levy from the Brand New Heavies on bass. It was a bit of a collective, because there was always musicians.
So I think Andrew Levy was there first, and then Stuart Zender was after.
Yeah, Stuart Zender came after. Yeah. So that band evolved out of the whole acid jazz thing, a bit like we did. And it was, in other words, we were like a collective of musicians coming into the studio. We had James Taylor come in on Hammond. Simon Bartholomew from the Heavies played a bit of guitar on our first album, and then it sort of evolved into a live act from there. Once we went out on the road, we had to trim it down to who could actually do it, which I was available, and my mate, Chris was on drums and Matt on guitar, and then Bryn ended up on keyboards. And so that's how Mother Earth started, and we did three studio albums and a live album.
Okay.
We toured extensively, toured through Europe, over and over.
Yeah.
Territories like Germany and Japan were good for us. UK is always very competitive, so we did all right in the UK, but you'd never want to tour in England, because you get spoilt when you go places like Germany and Japan. They just roll out the red carpet and food and wine, and you'd be like, "Well, this is good." Yeah. So we used to go to Japan regularly every year and tour. We actually came to Australia in '94. So we came here and I actually arrived in Melbourne. I thought one day I'm going to live here, and I did. Right. So there you go.
And how did you find playing in a band like that, which is fairly intricate fusion stuff, without any music education background? Did you find you have to shed a lot for the gig, or was it all just very natural? You guys kind of wrote it together, or did somebody come to you and go, "These are the chords, come up with a line," kind of thing?
Because Matt was the primary songwriter, the guitarist and vocalist. He was obviously just having an acoustic guitar. He was just great with chords and song structure. But none of us could read music anyway. Right. So it was like we're all on the same page.
Okay.
Excuse me.
Well, that's good. Yeah.
Because there's no page. But you know what I mean? None of us had studied music in that context. I think Matt had probably had some lessons, but none of us actually sat there and read. We just created it, and it was just playing by ear. I had an understanding of scales and stuff. Yeah.
I'm not saying that you, unless you've studied, you don't know about music, but
I think going back, if I was going to change anything from my development as a musician, I think I probably would have liked to started reading music as soon as I could play, rather than just picking an instrument up and just running. Because the further you go, it's almost harder to go back and start.
Ideally, you want both. You want to be able to use your ear and pick it out, and you also want to be able to go play it. Because I think a lot of time when I'm talking to my students about reading music and theory and stuff, and it's not that if you haven't been taught it, then you don't know it or can't figure out. It's just that it's a tool to get you there quicker.
It's a language, and it's a way of reading that language. Yeah, that's all. It's just another way of accessing.
Exactly. Yeah, and if you can do both, then
I do it the hard way. If I'm going to do a gig and it's a covers gig, I'll sit down and I'll learn 28 songs. Yeah, and I can actually do it in a day or two quite easily. I say it's not all day, but I can sit there for like 4 or 5 hours a day and get it down. Yeah, and just finger memory, and then the rest is obviously you just figure out endings and stuff as you go, and you've got enough experience. You know when the drummer's going to stop, and you just
eye contact, knocking.
That's all. Yeah, that all comes with the experience of just playing for years, like you have and I have. We can just we can deal with that kind of thing. But I think my honest advice to someone starting out on any instrument is learn to read as you go as well, because it's so invaluable. It doesn't have to be that way. If you're just going to be a completely original music artist.
Yeah.
But even then, you might want to write down some stuff for other people to play. So
because studio time is
Yeah.
precious, as we know.
Yeah.
So if you can go and write it out
Yes.
for whoever
Yeah.
you got in the studio,
Yeah.
then you cut out that time of no, it's G, and then it's 4 bars of that.
Exactly.
Like, boom,
Yeah.
there it is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I think that's where it comes into its own if you can do that. I mean, I can read charts and stuff. If someone puts a chord chart, that's
Yeah.
fine. And I know enough theory, and over the years I've taught myself enough theory to be able to just deal with chords and shapes and scales and
Yeah.
understand what it means.
I mean, those are really the bass players. I mean,
Yeah,
exactly.
exactly.
Stuff.
Yeah. So I wouldn't say I'm particularly good at it, but I can get by, and it's like a combination of that and a bit of natural ability and a good ear.
Yeah.
A good ear is also important.
And, so going on from that, what would you say are important qualities for being a good bass player?
I'd say one. I mean, for me, primarily is good time.
Yeah.
Good tone as well. I mean, a lot of it's it's individual. It's in the fingers. So you could pick this bass up and it would sound different than me playing it. But I think initially you need really good timekeeping, good tempo, and an understanding of tempos and feel, and that's something to work on in parallel with all the other stuff. So if you're running your scales and your chops and your chord, that's fine. But I used to literally drum with my hands along to tracks to keep time and see what the drums were doing as well. And also, I think for a bass player, get to the point where even subconsciously you know what the bass drum is doing.
Right.
Because it's really, I don't even know I'm doing it, but I will just play with. If I play with the drum, I find I'm just locking in with the bass drum.
Yeah.
It's okay to have obviously jump on the snare and the rest, but the bass drum is really, if you lock into that, it really enhances the bass line. Full stop.
Or being aware of it, because it's not like you always have to play on it, but know where it is so you can play it before or after it intentionally.
That's
I think understanding drums and how drum parts work, because obviously you do programming and stuff.
Yeah.
So, and I did a lot of programming as well when I was younger, and really understanding how a drum beat is made up really helps fit in groove wise.
Yes,
I think as a bass player.
Yeah. So that's really important. I mean, because a lot of bass players like me are frustrated drummers anyway. I mean, I'd love, if I had the space and the time to have a drum kit at home and play it, I would. Because it's good fun and it's like a natural extension. But you know full well, it's like you got, I can see a Les Paul there is, I'll play a bit of guitar as well, because we're the bridge between the rhythm and the melody. Yeah. That's the other thing that's important, is to have an understanding of rhythm, but also you got to understand melody. Yeah. And be able to figure out what's going on with
so like know your place in the music as well, and how you can shape and impact things positively and negatively.
Exactly, because it's the bass is quite a unique position to be in a band because of that, because you are that bridge between melody and rhythm. That's why it's a great instrument as well.
Yeah. So obviously you got a F bass in your hands at the minute.
Lucky.
What's been your journey to get to?
Probably 100 basses. I'm pretty. I've got a bit of reputation for buying and selling gear.
Really?
Yeah, apparently. Well, I think one bass a month is not too extreme. Anyway, no, over the years, I've had a lot of basses. I'm really pretty meat and potatoes with what I like. It's always been Fenders, Music Man, that kind of thing. I did have an endorsement with Warwick years ago, and I actually like Streamer Stage 2. Okay. Primarily because it's still got jazz bass pickups, and it was it's a tone you can work with.
Was it a bit heavy?
Yeah, it was quite heavy because they're always quite chunky. Yeah. But listen, the Warwick stuff's great.
They work.
Yeah, they work. Yeah, it's one of the few other basses through the years that you can say it has its own distinctive tone and an idea behind the concept. So. But no, always really been into Fenders. I had a Stingray. Most of Mother Earth stuff, apart from the first album, let's just say, was done on a PV. Some strange little PJ sort of setup, which was a good bass, rosewood neck. But then once the band sort of established itself, I thought, okay, I really would like to get a proper bass, and I ended up buying a red. I think it was a 1986 Stingray. So it was an early Ernie Ball one. Mm-hmm. So I had the Bird's Eye Maple ball, translucent red with a clear pick guard. Oh. It's 2-band EQ, which I actually quite liked on them. And I used that on most of my work.
I had a 1989 Stingray.
Did you?
Natural with a clear pick guard on. I changed. I got a clear pick guard put on it. I got a disco element.
Yeah. No, it was good bass. I used that on a lot of most of the Mother Earth stuff. Later on, I used the jazz bass more on the later albums.
Mm-hmm.
But again, it really depended on what was in the studio at the time as well. Sometimes with the higher gear in, and there'd be a fretless P bass, and I'll try that on the track.
Yep.
So yeah, down the line, I've gone through lots of basses. Sadowski's I'm really into, but I actually ended up moving a lot of stuff, in the last few months to buy this F bass and the blue one that's over there, the VF5. And these are really the two only 5 strings I've ever stuck. I've tried 5 strings in the past, but never really got into it. But these 2 basses in particular, I don't know, they're just doing it for me. So yeah, they're just. So in the last 9 months, I've really got into 5 strings, and I've always, 35 years of playing, I've been mainly a 4-string player. Yeah. But these have that Fender DNA. It's in the tone.
There's an organic, dynamic thing to them.
Yes. Yeah. Exactly.
And they're responsive.
The way this is constructed with this neck joint of the heel into the body, just you feel every note coming through the back of the body. Even the VF5 is super responsive, but never sort of overly twangy or gnarly or aggressive. It's just really, really usable, warm, classic tones.
And the preamps, we're talking earlier on about how usable the preamp is and stuff as well.
Super transparent.
Ergonomic.
Yeah, everything's right. It just feels so very comfortable. Great, great to look at. I mean, the workmanship and everything. It's just the fret. Another thing is I'm really fussy about frets because I like to play everywhere, and I don't particularly like things to bottom out or buzz. Okay. And through the years, I've had a lot of vintage Fenders, which sound good, but once you get up here, you're like, I can't use it. Yeah. And that used to annoy the hell out of me because you're paying good money for a vintage bass.
You want it to be playable down here, but not. You can't play
and I know you can get frets done, dressed in, but you sometimes lose the mojo. You sometimes get it back and you go, it's a different bass. It just feels. Yeah. So to get to find an instrument like this that I just go, wow, everything you play, everything you like. It's so versatile. Any time, any style of music. Yeah. Just just blown away.
And then rigs.
Rigs. I'm currently using an Aguilar rig. I've got a Tonehammer 500 with 2 DB112 caps. Okay, yeah. I like the vintage look of it.
Yeah. Are they green?
No, they're just the black and silver. Yeah, classic sort of. Yeah. But look, they sound awesome. They're quite heavy, but sometimes you have to carry something heavy around if it sounds good. Yeah, but, I mean the head's very light. So
yeah, I mean over the years you must have. Did you ever go the Ampeg stack thing?
No, never really got into Ampeg. I think it's it's great stuff, but it's a definite ethos. It's more rock, big. I just never
junky.
Yeah, I mean I had Warwick amps years ago because I had the endorsement. They were good. Before that, in the 90s with Mother Earth, I used Hartke because there was nothing around like that had that sort of punch. Right. And you can imagine a Stingray with those aluminium cones was a little bit like... Ding. Yeah. But I used to just roll the tone off a bit.
Okay, that's nice of you.
Yeah. So it wasn't going to cut your ears off. So, and then later on, to be honest, I would have to say, I got into Mark bass pretty early. It arrived in the UK years, it's probably going back maybe 15 years ago. And someone at the bass shop in Camden at Gallery said to me, have you seen this stuff from Italy? It's super lightweight and loud. I went, no, I'm sick. Tried it, fell in love, and that was it. So I used Mark bass for a long time, right up until the last year or so. But I've tried everything. I've tried Eden stuff. I like it. I mean, you can't. Most rigs are good. All the lightweight stuff it all sounds good. Yeah. It's just personal preference and how heavy it is as well.
Yeah, it depends what you're doing. Like, are you lugging it in and out every week? Are you playing jazz gigs? Are you playing weddings, clubs? It's like you just kind of factor it. There's a kind of optimum weight to sound ratio that you can kind of deal with. Yeah. I mean, ideally, I'd love to have like a DB750 and a 6x10. That would be
exactly. Sound amazing. But you need 3 people to carry it around. Exactly, yeah. So that's the part. I mean, listen, in Mother Earth we had road it, so I didn't have to. I didn't pay attention to any of that. I used to just turn up, and there it would be on. The bass would be on the stage, ready to go, and okay. Yeah. That was that, So, but no, I mean, like you go in the bass centre, obviously they've got amazing stock of amps and everything, and you can play most rigs sound amazing. But it just depends what you want, what you're looking for.
Yeah.
And if you see endorsees that you like, certain players that are using GK or using, you go, okay, I relate to that. That's really what, that's how we get into, is what we also relate to as well. True. On a design and functional level. So yeah.
Is there anything that you're working on playing wise these days?
Well, I've got it. My wife Zan is a singer, and we had a sort of funk, sort of quite 70s, late 60s, early 70s retro funk band called Zan and the Good Things that we were sort of running for a while, and we played at Night Cat a lot in the last couple of years. But we've decided to just move away, just for the moment, just move away from any live shows to work on some original stuff. So at the moment, it's a home studio, home-based project. So you know what that's like. Putting tracks together at home, and it's a gradual process, and it's slow, and it's a lot of it is just you just refine stuff a lot as well. Yeah. For me, personally.
I mean, do you? Because everybody's process is different. Do you kind of flick through sounds and loops for inspiration, or do you come up with a chord sequence or a bass line and then try and fit it to that?
Probably all of those.
All of those.
Yeah, I think sometimes it's literally noodle around, find a bass idea. It could be a scale, could be try and some flashy super Locrian scale and think make a mistake, think well that's good, or use that, or change the sequence of notes. It can be anything. Can be flicking through sample library, drums, and go, okay, that's a groove, I want to do something with that. I can be just playing the MIDI keyboard, grand piano sound, practicing a bit of piano, because it's always good to play a bit of piano anyway, for writing purposes. And go, okay, that's something I can run with. Acoustic guitar as well, I find, is really, really good. I don't know, something about an acoustic guitar. I can just sit there, just make up whatever, just try some chord shapes, strum, and then all of a sudden you go, okay, this feels like a song, and then off you go. So latching onto that spark of an idea and then developing it is,
And do you find that you're affected by what you're listening to?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. So listening to lots of stuff in the car, even subconsciously, you're absorbing the ideas. And concepts, and it's not even taking a song and saying, okay, I want to do something like that, but you kind of just get a vibe and think, that's inspiring, I'd like to try an idea like that, or whatever. Sometimes you get too close to the idea and go, okay, well, it sounds too similar, but it's like you just
wrap it up differently.
You just just inject your own personality into it, because you can only do you know what I mean? You can't be everybody else. So
Is there anyone in the minute that you're kind of really digging?
I've really been a Thundercat for the last couple of years. Like his stuff a lot. I absorb a lot of stuff. I mean, the bass player Lindley Mouth, I've been checking, ever since he played with Zal years ago, I've been checking his stuff out, and I track down albums where he's playing, and some of them are very world music, some of them are very, sort of out there.
I love that, the Zal Syndicate World Tour album.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
That's awesome. Yeah, he's phenomenal. I mean, I actually went to see him at Ronnie Scott's a couple of years ago with a Russian sax player, Zenya Strigolev, and he was mind blowing. One of your favourites, Lettuce, I'd still check out a lot. And my brother introduced me to Lettuce years ago. So we've been big fans of Lettuce, and again saw them recently, so that was good. I'm always looking for new stuff.
You on the Snarky bandwagon?
Yes, I was actually into Snarky about 5 years ago. Yeah. Which is, I got their early albums. Really and I still like, they're great.
Friends.
Yeah. And I saw Snarky when they were here a couple of years ago. That was good. Yeah. I'm trying to think of else. I'm listening to Kumasi Washington, the sax player.
Okay, yeah.
Thundercats.
He's in town a couple of weeks, I think.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah. There's so much good stuff out there.
Yeah.
And I still go back to
classics.
Yeah. I like a lot of. I still go back. I listen to Marvin Gaye, and I just go, shake my head and go, it doesn't get any better than this. Just certain, certain albums.
Yeah, I was on the car, and there's an internet radio, and an old Stanley Clarke album came on.
Yeah.
And I hadn't listened to Stanley in a long time, because sometimes you can overdose on like that.
Yes.
One kind of style, or it reminds you too much of your youth when you were into all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
But just this track came on, and I think it was from Pebbles Rocks Stones album or something like that. With Simon Phillips, and it was just ferocious. Like the playing, but But also his composition. As soon as a Stanley Clarke song comes on, you know it's him.
Yeah.
He has a definite thumbprint on everything.
Yeah.
But just the arranging and all the different ideas that was going on.
Yeah.
It was very cool.
Yeah, so I still go back to a lot of stuff like that, even like Tara Power, George Duke. So many. I've got so many. It's like I can't even think about. There's so many. I still listen to Weather Report.
Yeah.
I really like the early '80s Weather Report stuff. With, Hakeem and Victor Bailey. Victor Bailey's a big influence on me as well. And again, saw Weather Report in 1984. They blew me away, and all those things are just they're sort of embedded in my musical sort of influences. It's just but there's always good new stuff out there as well. And obviously the internet just. Yeah. I mean, sometimes the internet is it's so inspiring. Other times you just feel completely inadequate.
Paralysed.
Because there's so many amazing players out there, so many amazing musicians, and on every instrument. Yeah. There's sometimes you go, it's just like it could go both ways. You know, I mean, sometimes I'm like, give up. But other times I'm like, that's cool, and then I'll pick this.
You can always have to tell yourself nobody sounds like you.
No, exactly.
And some people will like that.
Yeah.
Fact, so you just got to play to that.
Yeah, that's the thing. You got to. You've always got to remember that you got your own voice. And we'll.
Cool, man.
Yeah. Cool.
Awesome having you around. Very interesting. Thanks for watching. Hope you enjoyed it. Check out basslessonsmelbourne.com for more videos, and we'll see you next time.